Folks, as I mentioned in the top of the hour, we have a special guest coming on the show today. That is Mr. Jeremy Zeller. He's been on the show before, but I wanted to have him back because he just keeps succeeding with his career, and I always enjoy conversing with Jeremy. Jeremy Zeller is a multiple winner at the Lexington Music Awards, and he is an artist from a small town of Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, known for his powerful vocals, described as having the growl of a dog and the whisper of a kitten. Jeremy blends raw energy with delicate intimacy in his performances. His electrifying live shows captivates audiences, while his deeply personal songwriting resonates with listeners. Drawing from his family's rich musical heritage and the musical influences of his Kentucky roots, Jeremy's music encompasses elements of country, blues, and rock. As the frontman of Jeremy Zeller and The Other Side, he is creating a sound that is uniquely his own in the heart of the bluegrass state. Jeremy's songwriting is deeply reflective of his life experiences, exploring themes like struggle, pain, and recovery. His live performance, Jeremy Zeller and The Other Side, A Story of Recovery and Discovery, invites audiences into his journey. Through powerful, vulnerable storytelling, Jeremy tackles subjects such as addiction and recovery, growing up diagnosed with autism, young love, divorce, religious trauma, and a blended family life. The heart of Jeremy's music is captured in the phrase, "Once blind, now I see. Once dead, now I live." His songs serve as a musical reflection of the hero's journey with rhythm and melody, helping to tell his story of transformation. In addition to music, Jeremy is an advocate for autism awareness, being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder as an adult. And he says that has helped him understand life from a new perspective, turning previously gray areas into a vibrant, colorful world. Through his platform, he raises awareness and encourages others to embrace the beauty of their unique experiences. So, before we bring Jeremy into the studio, I would like to play the song that won Jeremy an award at the Lexington Music Awards, and it's this song right here. It's called "It's Hard to Be Young," and this will be Off the Cuff's Song of the Week. So when we come back from the song, folks, we will have live in person Jeremy Zeller himself. We'll be back. All right, that was Jeremy Zeller with the beautiful song, "It's Hard to Be Young." Jeremy, my man, thank you so much for being here, friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
And you've been on the show before. I think it was right around this time last year, and we talked about all of your wins at the Lexington Music Awards. Nothing was no different this year, man. You dominated with 4 wins, 5 nominations.
Yes.
5 nominations.
5 nominations.
4 wins. If you're doing the math at home, that's like a 95% win rate. So congratulations.
Thank you.
It just made sense to bring you on again. And man, not just to talk about music. I'm just fascinated with your story. I'm fascinated with, your testimony. And I've not really got to talk to you about it, man. And you're very religious.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you even like to use the word religious.
Not typically. I'm more of a spiritual guy, but, I understand the sentiment behind saying that.
Exactly. And, I'm kind of the same way. When somebody says, "Are you religious?" I know what they mean by it.
Yeah.
But I always like to say I am a Christian. I am a sinner saved by grace.
I'm a Christ follower.
Yes.
Like if I needed to put a definition on it, I'm a Christ follower.
Yes. So, man, let's talk about that because I'm just fascinated with it, your story. How did that come about for you? Were you always a believer, and when did that happen for you?
Yeah. God has been in my life my entire life, and I praise Him for that. I was raised in a family with a mom and dad that made that important. And so as a kid, I can still remember as a 3-year-old, I was on the couch watching Jesus of Nazareth. It was like the 1976, 77 version of Jesus of Nazareth.
It's a good movie.
It's my favorite movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I still watch it like once a year. Mm-hmm. So, but I can remember a moment in that at the end, as Christ was being crucified. I don't know, man. There was just something really special in that moment where I had always heard this name over the course of my life, and then sitting down with my mom and my brother and watching that story play out. And for me, when I saw my mom's reaction to this man dying that she loved and had told me about, even though I was 3, that really has stuck with me since. I can tell you what the texture of the couch was, where she was sitting, where my brother was. It was just a special moment. And so I can remember over the course of those years just kind of beginning to understand what God meant to me. And that was, all the way through into, high school, even as a youth group guy, I was always very involved in that stuff. And then outside of high school, I went on my own little journey. Outside of the church, just like any teenager does. I moved to L.A. To do some acting stuff, and I moved back. It was look, especially I'm late diagnosed autistic, so there's a lot about my life that I've had to reflect over through the mind of who I was as even then as an autistic kid, and some of the things that I've gotten myself into is pretty funny. And L.A. was a lot of that for me. I was just an alien in this world that I knew that I didn't want to raise a family there. So even then, as a young man, I knew, no, I got to come back to Kentucky.
So, you said something pretty profound. A lot of people, even when they come to Christ at a young age, a lot of people, they get into their teenage years, they get into their young adulthood, and they move away, and they're just engulfed in all of this sin, and they fall away. But the great thing about Christ is He's always willing and always accepting us for us to come back to Him. So was there a particular moment in your life? Do you remember the time, the age you were, where you're like, you know what, I'm sorry. Like, I want to get back to where I was.
Yeah, I think anybody that has lived a consistent life with the Lord understands that there's multiple moments like that. There's multiple different kinds of awakenings that you can have within your own spirit that help you realize that, Christ is the same. He still loves you. He's still, the sacrifice remains, and the teachings as well. And so, several moments. I can remember as a 15-year-old when I'm, because I was born in Kentucky, and then as like a 7-year-old went to Chicago, grew up in the suburbs of Chicago until I was 15. And then when I came back, I had one of those moments, and I was like, I am recommitting myself to the Lord, and I was really serious about it. And that, honestly, that commitment to the Lord lasted up until when I was like 40.
Yeah.
And then when I was 40, man, I was a mess. This was pre-autism diagnosis. I was smack dab in the middle of my own addiction journey with pills. It was, I had gotten a divorce at the time, and I also left the church that I loved. And so I was in a really, really heavy spot. But thank God for therapy, and even more for God's grace, man, because at the end of that, that was about till 2017. 2017, I literally just walked away from the church. I was born into the church, raised by it, employed by it. I was as into the church as one could be in America. And so I walked away from that in 2017 because of a multitude of reasons. I can blame myself as much as I can blame anybody else, especially in the church. The church is a beautiful, beautiful collective group of people as a whole. For me, my favorite part of working with the church was being able to work with the volunteers, because that's where you find the heart of a church. And so in 2017, I walked away from that, and I paid for that. Like my spirit paid for that, because I spent about 5 years. I didn't want to hear about God. I had just lost my entire family in my mind, going through a divorce. I gave up on love. I gave up on myself. I gave up on any goodness that I could have possibly had in me. But the beautiful part about my own journey is that I have drawn on the lessons of Jesus my whole life. And yes, I myself willingly was a participant in not wanting to hear anything about God, but that's the part of my life that paid for it. I was an addict because of it. I was, really, really, my mental health I was suicidal. I was in a bad place. And so, Jesus met me on the floor. I'll sing a song about it later.
Yeah.
You wanted me to sing a few. I'll share that one with you. Jesus met me on the floor, and it was as tangible of an experience as I've ever had in my life.
Well, that's amazing. You know, the Lord chastiseth his children to bring us back. It sounds like that's what he was doing. And sometimes people wonder, why is he, why is my life going this way? Why is it happening? And I think it's simply because he's showing you, he's punishing you. He wants you to come back. And that's exactly.
I don't know that it's punishing or if it's just he's letting you have your free will. He's letting you have your cake and eat it too.
Yes, like he's almost kind of he almost turns you over to that sin and lets you live in that for you to experience it and to show you that there's no good that comes from it.
Yep.
But thank God for his grace. I love that. And I could talk about it all day.
Anytime, bro.
I could talk about it all day with you. Now, you did mention that you were diagnosed with autism. When did you get diagnosed with that?
That was November 8th of 2021.
Okay.
Is when I was officially diagnosed. I had been going to therapy for a while for it. But
now, a lot of people, when they hear that you have autism, there might be some misconceptions that people have. What do you feel like is the biggest misconception that people have about you when you tell them that you were diagnosed with autism?
Nowadays, it's getting easier because people understand that it's autism spectrum disorder. Like that there's this plethora of identities that one has as an autistic person. I'm very high functioning. It's nothing that my parents ever were even familiar with as I grew up, and I don't slight them at all. Actually, I'm grateful my parents didn't know that I was autistic as a kid because I probably would have been sheltered. But my life has been just the opposite. I've had this freedom in my life because I was a pretty good kid, for the most part. I got into, some trouble and some shenanigans. But my parents have always given me this sense of freedom, and I would not have had that at all, I don't believe, had I had a doctor or a therapist telling my mother that this is who your son is. I was able to find it out on my own terms and in my own life. And I do believe that it's because of the story that God had put me through, including working with autistic kids and learning the brain that way. I learned the autistic brain completely removed from who I thought that I was. I was learning it about kids at the time.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was at a therapist, and my therapist goes, hey, I got another guy that you really need to go see. He specializes in autism, and I'd like you to go talk to him. And so that's really where in my brain I was like, oh my gosh, because I've had people through the course of my life ask me that question, but I just did not. I thought that being autistic was like being mentally retarded, and it's very different. It's just not, And so, but I was ignorant. I just didn't know. And so, but yeah, that was coming to terms with it once I had, a professional in front of me that I trusted really allow me to walk myself through it, really. And so, on the other side of it, it was like it's like I suddenly saw in color. It's like everything just made sense.
Well, you said that. You speak about how your world was once black and white, and now it's colorful. Can you elaborate on how your understanding of the world and humanity has evolved since your diagnosis?
Yeah. How much time do we have? No, I can say, have you ever heard of Plato's Cave?
Plato's Cave.
So it's this analogy.
No.
It's like an ancient teaching type of thing. And what it is Plato tells this story of these men that are in a cave, and they're watching shadow play on the wall. There's a fire behind them that is casting shadows, and these men are in the cave, and they're just watching these shadows dance. And it's all they've ever known. They don't know anything other than that. Their whole life has been this wall with this shadow dancing. But suddenly someone says, hey, if you walk down that direction and walk outside, there's way more than just shadows here. And that's the analogy. The analogy is I was in a cave. I saw nothing but shadow play in my life, in my own way. And it was manifested in experiences throughout my life, the way that I've reacted, the way that I learn, the way that I create, the way that I communicate with people, and on and on and on. There's just so much of it where once I understood that this is a language that I can be proud of and not shameful of, because in my brain, I always felt different. I always felt like I wasn't completely being myself in front of people. I had a hard time not wearing a mask in front of people and just being whatever they needed me to be to survive the moment, you know. And so part of my autistic journey myself is realizing which masks are even important enough anymore for me, you know, as I go through this mental health journey. And you know, I could go into the ways, especially for me, it's changed everything about the way that I learn. I got very bad grades in school. And I always had a thing about it. I always felt guilty about it, even as an adult. Then I went back to school and I ended up getting a 4.1.
There you go.
Yeah, right. And so I didn't graduate, but that was a health thing with my daughter. I still have thoughts of going back, but it was I think I went back just to prove to myself, because I went a couple semesters and I did really well. And it was I'm not dumb. And so
you're certainly not dumb,
well,
Jeremy.
no, but there was a real part of my life as a kid that experienced bad grades that really thought that this is a reflection of my smartness.
And it's not. I feel like a lot of people base their intelligence off the grades they make. Some of the stupidest people I've met make great grades. And some of the smartest people that I've met just don't make the grades. And so that's the standard, and I feel like that's just kind of how people measure their intelligence, and I think that's silly. But Jeremy, I want to give you some time to perform live here on the radio. Talk about this song that you're going to play for us.
Well, I guess I'm going to play the song I just talked about.
Yeah.
The song, I used to refer to it as my autism song. Mm-hmm. This song was born out of basically a week of my life that so many things had happened in my brain for my mental health. Hindus call it moksha. It's a moment of awakening. It's just this moment of clarity, I suppose. Yeah. And I just had this moment of clarity about myself. You know, I had beaten myself up for so long, thinking that I was discarded trash at that time. And when Jesus found me on the floor that day, mm-hmm. He lifted me up, mm-hmm. and he gave me new vision, mm-hmm. and I suddenly saw in color.
Amen. Amen. Well, take it away, my friend.
Well, I suddenly see in color that I never would have known had I stayed there in that corner with my broken nightlight on. Just a kid there in the kitchen, face down on the floor, a stick cocked at the doorway as the clock struck 3 once more. Oh, but I found out along the way that Jesus loves Judas the same, and that the atoms are made of empty space, and that Judas loves Jesus the same. Yes, I found out along the way that colors and sounds are all the same. Yes, I found out along the way that Judas loves Jesus the same. I stand here at the table, the scraps all on the floor, my family brought together by the years of tears and more. But I finally see the picture that's borne down in my heart, the hopes and fears of all the years my mind had yet to start. Oh, but I found out along the way that Jesus loves Judas the same, and that the atoms are made of empty space, and that Judas loves Jesus the same. Yes, I found out along the way that colors and sounds are all the same. Yes, I found out along the way that Judas loves Jesus the same. Yes, I found out along the way that Judas loves Jesus the same.
And you wrote that?
I did.
The maturity in your lyrics, too, man. Like, you know, you're just so wise. So how old are you?
I'll be 50, August 29th, baby.
50
years old.
50 over the hill.
Yeah.
Some people say 40 is over the hill, so I'm...
Oh, man, I'm loving it.
Are you
Absolutely.
Do you like being older versus being younger?
Absolutely. I love the gray in my beard. I love it. Look, I've had a lot of people that have struggled with aging and grasping it. But for me, man, I don't know, man. I might have found my inner child or something. But, and it comes through in my art. So thank you for picking up on that.
Oh, for sure.
I appreciate wise lyrics. I've always been a fan, you know. Michael Stipe is one of my favorite songwriters, REM, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Duritz from Counting Crows,
Yep.
Dustin Kensrue from Thrice. All these guys are just really wise and introspective as they write. So, yeah.
So what's next for Jeremy Zeller? Are there any upcoming projects or collaborations that you're excited to talk about?
Well, funny you ask that, Adam. There are.
Okay, let's hear it, brother.
Yeah, actually, I've just teamed up with Danny Mickoff in Mill Springs Studio.
I love Danny.
Yeah. We are gonna. We're gonna do an album together. So yeah,
cool.
I'm going down there to Mill Springs to record with him. So that's something to definitely. I guess for me, I'm very excited about.
Absolutely.
I've been writing this album since 2012, so it's like I'm picking songs that fill those gaps. The project is called The Soundtrack for Healing.
Okay,
and it's essentially just my testimony put to music on a project, you know, where it's all consecutive, you know, stories one after the other to tell a broader story. So yeah, I'm very excited about it.
So when is you need to go on tour? When's this happening? When are you going to go on a tour and just spread your music outside of the state?
Yeah, as soon as somebody says, "Hey man, want to go on tour?" or "Hey, you want to open up for this band?" Like, this is what I do. I do this every day. You know, if I'm not doing it because I'm getting paid for it, I'm doing it because it is giving me an opportunity to share my music. I am very much at the place in this journey where I play more music and don't get paid for it than I play music and get paid for. So I'm I'm trying to do this smart, and I'll keep doing the work. I'll keep, showing up every day until those opportunities come up for me. I believe they will. But I also know that I'm a difficult guy to pigeonhole. I'm too church for the churches, and I'm not church enough for I'm not church enough for the churches, and I'm too church for the bars in some cases. So I get it. Like I'm a wildcat in that. So, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But until I do get a phone call from somebody that says, "Hey man, let's go," I'll keep doing what I'm doing. God is opening up so many cool doors to be able to share this story. And, I'll share it under a bridge just as the same as I would share it on top of a mountain, in front of a crowd. One person, doesn't matter.
Amazing. Well, Jeremy, I'm going to have you play us out. Before you go, tell everybody where they can get more information from you at. Throw out your social media handles, etc.
Yeah. So on Facebook, you just look me up, Jeremy Zeller. I've got a YouTube channel called Jeremy Zeller on the Other Side, where I document a lot of things, and I put out little episodes, and that's always fun. I've got a Patreon that I just started, patreon.com/Jeremy Zeller. Everything eventually is going to be funneled in that direction. Other than that, Instagram, all those fun things, TikToks, all those, I've got all those. I'm not crazy active on any of it, which is why I'm trying to do Patreon, because it's going to be like one community that I can go to. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, as Jeremy tunes up that guitar, just want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. We will be back same time, same place next Thursday from 4 to 5. We're going to close you out with a performance from Jeremy Zeller. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here. And folks, we will see you next week.
Well, someone poisoned my wine.